Welcome to Women in Leadership Talk, where you'll hear from successful women who are empowering other women with their stories of adversity, resiliency, and success. And here is your host, Vicki Bradley, founder and CEO of Women in Leadership Empowered.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Women in Leadership Talk podcast. Thank you for joining us today. I don't know where you are in the world, but I know where I'm at. It's super hot. So I hope if you're having the same kind of heat wave, I hope you're keeping nice and cool today. So we have a wonderful guest joining us from Austin, Texas. We're going to be talking lots about gut health and our metabolism. So welcome, Dr. Lahana Vigliano.
It's a mouthful. Well, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
And I even practiced. It's lovely to have you joining us today. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I love geeking out on this topic and I love talking to women in leadership. So it's a win-win.
Awesome. Well, we've got lots to cover today. And before we jump into all that, I want to thank our audience for being here. We're super grateful that you continue to chime in and listen to these amazing stories and work and impact that these fantastic individuals are having on our world. And so if this resonates with you today, please do share this episode, leave us a rating, let us know how we're doing. I know I always say that, but I really do want you to communicate with me. Let me know if there are other voices you want to hear and how you're liking the voices that we're bringing to the table. So thank you for being here. So let's talk about why Dr. Lahana is here with us today. She's the CEO and founder of Nuvitru, a leading concierge functional wellness practice. She is a doctor of clinical nutrition. She specializes in women's health, gut function, and metabolic optimization. At Nuvitru, she combines functional medicine lab testing with personalized care to uncover each patient's unique health profile, aiming to enhance both their well-being and their longevity. Through a holistic and science-driven approach, she empowers her clients to achieve optimal health and balance. First of all, let me just say this, so excited to have the conversation. Functional wellness is so important, and I think today more than ever. So thank you for the work you're doing. Very hard to find a functional medicine doctor. So honestly, I'm a huge fan and so grateful that our paths have crossed and that we're able to have this conversation today.
Yeah, me too. And I always joke and say it's kind of the wild, wild west out there because you really don't know what you're going to get. And so even though a lot of our patients they've seen naturopathic doctors, they've seen functional, they've seen a lot of different providers, and a lot of them are still struggling. So even that is it's just so much gray area. So yeah, there's a lot of confusion, as you can see in social media and in the world. There's just a lot of confusion of the side of healthcare.
Yeah, no, for sure there is. And I mean, I'm a huge fan. I live in Canada, I'm in Toronto, and I have a variety of naturopath doctors that I work with because, and I have Western medicine as well, traditional medical doctors, but when you treat the body holistically, you're not just treating the symptom of what's wrong. You're really getting into the core of what the cause is. And so often we get caught up in the prescribe a pill, do this, and we're not looking at our whole lifestyle. So I have been so excited for this conversation today, and maybe just kick us off with talking about your journey and what has led you on this health and wellness journey and why you're doing the work that you're doing.
Yeah. I don't have a personal health story that a lot of people have that led them into this field. I was the weird 5-year-old that knew what they wanted to do at such a young age. And so I wanted to be a doctor since I was very young, and that it's just always been that way. And then when I got into the pre-med part and, you're taking all of these classes, whether it's anatomy and physiology and immunology and pharmacology, I realized throughout the classes that really the way our healthcare system is built is a pill for an ill, like you mentioned.
Mm.
And even in functional, I will be the first to say, honestly, they do a natural pill for an ill. So that's why I'm saying it's like the wild, wild
Mhm.
west, because there are some things that still haven't changed, even though they seem more natural. But anyways, going back a little bit too, before I got into my pre-med program, I was a mom at 18. So as you know, being a mom yourself, you know how much that changes your life and your
Mm.
world. And that also changed the way I think I viewed things, whether it's wanting to be there for my kids. And I know obviously being a doctor, it's a lot. And the time
Mm.
commitment, not even just being in school, but afterwards. So that started kind of getting my brain working a little bit of like, is this really what I want to do? And then as I was in those classes, I'm like, I don't agree. I think there's a time and a place for that. But I think we are missing the whole point of, and what I was being taught was, if someone has diabetes, here's the medication. But I'm like, what's the
Mm.
whole point of, well, why are they getting diabetes in the
Yes.
first place? Like,
Yes.
let's go there, right?
Mhm.
And then I was forced to kind of take a nutrition class. And even then I wasn't completely like sold, but I saw the light and I was like, okay, I see that this is a huge part, like a huge part in how our body functions. And I was like, I really want to run with this. So that's what led me into that. And then obviously you go down the rabbit hole, then you're down the rabbit hole and there's no going back.
No
So,
coming back.
so yes, that's what got me into the health field. And then we had our daughter and I was able to stay at home because I was going to school full time, had my son and working full time. So I was able to stay at home a little bit, which was so great because I didn't get that with my son. And then I don't know, I was 6 months in and I'm like, I don't know, I want to put my degree to work. I want to do something now. I don't know, I guess got maybe a little bored, even though I loved that time with her. But then I was like, let's just start a business.
Why
Like,
not?
no idea what I was doing. Honestly, no one ever has any idea because there's always a next level that you just don't even know and you
Mm.
haven't reached yet. But yeah, that's where my business just randomly started. And I was just like, I want to help people. And throughout it all, I've always had a passion for gut health, even though I didn't
Mm.
know exactly what it was. So I do think that there was some natural intuition there of
Yeah.
just my love for it, even before I really knew what it was. And then just women's health and hormones and just helping people show them that everything is impacting one another. And
Yeah.
what people need is a lot of the times just someone to help piece those puzzle pieces together instead of just being like, go see a GI, go see a neurologist, like go see all these different people that we've split our bodies up into all these different systems, when in reality, they're all working together. They're all impacting one another, which I know we'll talk about today.
Oh my gosh. I love, 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 love that you just said that. And that's so true because you can't compartmentalize it. And like, I mean, healthcare in Canada is very different from healthcare in the US, just, because our medicine is social medicine. And like, even to get in to see someone could take months, even years in some cases. And, everything is connected. Like, it's huge. And audience, we could we could go down a lot of rabbit holes when it comes to health. But today I would really like us to get into gut health and gut health
Yeah.
and hormones. Very much a common conversation in the circles that I'm in and the women that I'm supporting and working in. And so what is the relationship between the gut health and the estrogen metabolism? Like, talk to us about, let's just go there.
Yeah, I love that you asked that because I think that automatically shows that there's a connection, which there is. But a lot of women will come and whether they are perimenopause or they're in their reproductive phase of life, they're like, I want to improve my hormones. And so they look at me like I have a third eyeball, which I fully understand how weird that looks when I start asking them about their poop. And they're like, I
Mm.
came for hormone health. I did not come for the gut. And it's because everything's interconnected. And I would say if you want better hormones, you have to start peeling back all these layers, and gut health being the
Mm.
first one. So we can't just jump into, well, why do you have low estrogen or high estrogen or progesterone or whatever? It's your reproductive system, your female hormones are responding to all the other areas of the body. And so pooping is phase 3 detox. So we talk a lot about like the liver detox, but pooping
Mm.
and peeing and sweating, this is how we actually get things out of the body. And so there are different bacteria in our gut that literally metabolize estrogen. And
Mhm.
so they can also, when they're imbalanced in the gut, they can increase an enzyme called beta glucuronidase. And basically what this does is like the estrogen that's left the liver, pretend it's like all packaged up in a really pretty box and it's ready to go through your poop and leave the body. Well, when this enzyme is high, it basically unravels that pretty little box and it lets estrogen back out, which can lead to having higher levels of
Oh.
estrogen. And so when people have endometriosis, which is associated with having higher estrogen levels, but when there's higher estrogen, again, it's not like, okay, well, what pill can lower estrogen? Our brains need to think about, well, why is our estrogen high in the first
Mhm.
place? And gut health is like one of the first things that come to mind. And then, as I said, it's just the way we let hormones leave our body. And so if we can't
Mhm.
clear it out, we're going to start seeing this impact and this backup there. And then we're going to start seeing like, those symptoms of having a lot of PMS or our breast being tender or our mood swings are crazy. So that's the primary way that our gut impacts our estrogen metabolism. It's literally letting it out of the body.
Okay, I love it. Okay, so let's go back to the poop because I think
Yes.
that's fascinating, right? Like, so how would you know whether your body is releasing the estrogen that it needs to release? Like, are there certain signs or an audience? I know we're getting a little bit graphic, but I think this is important because you
Yeah.
might see something or feel something that gives you clues to, something's just not right. I mean, from the PMS and maybe sleep is impacted, like there's other ways, but how would we know?
What's funny is that if there is like a beta glucuronidase issue, a lot of the times it can be symptom free. And that's where stool testing comes into play.
Okay.
Now, if your bacteria is off, you are more likely going to feel bloating or gassiness or different bowels, whether the spectrum of constipation, diarrhea,
Hmm.
acid reflux, feeling urgency of needing to go. But even myself, when because I love testing, everything, all the things. And even when I did mine, my beta glucuronidase was a little bit high and I had no symptoms. This was just I just want to check in. And I don't do
Curious.
stool testing every year, but just out of curiosity. And that's where I'm such a advocate for telling people that we don't want to wait until we have symptoms because by the
Mm,
time we have symptoms, we've had imbalances for
good point.
usually a long time. We don't go from being healthy to, oh, the next day I get diagnosed with cancer or I have a heart
Mm.
attack. Like, no, that has been brewing for usually a very long time. That's why I'm like, test even when you feel well so you can really get ahead of it because it's the imbalances that happen, then we have symptoms, then we get diagnosis. So always test ahead of time, and for this reason, because it can be very much symptom free.
Okay. Okay. So I want to go here because we're gonna do layman's terms, right?
Yeah.
How does gut health impact you overall? So we talked about the hormones, but what about the mind, the brain and the gut connections?
Oh my gosh, there's the gut is my favorite place because no matter what people come to us for, it could be autoimmunity, like having Hashimoto's,
Mhm.
or exactly acne, or it could be so many things not GI related. And I always bring up gut, and because it is the core of our health. And there's Hippocrates said, all disease begins in the gut. So
Mm.
even back then, I felt like there was ancient wisdom of just knowing the importance of gut health. And so I've seen, I feel like honestly, any symptom or diagnosis, I'm telling you, there's probably a connection to the gut. Even there was a study, how gut health impacts our blood sugar, and it was a rat study. But this obviously I remember this, and I read it a long time ago. But they took the gut bacteria from an obese mice and they put it into a lean mice, and that lean mouse actually got obese. And so that's showing
Fascinating.
how there's the gut bacteria and how it impacts our metabolic function. It can
Mhm.
impact blood sugar. It can impact our female hormones.
Mm-hmm.
Having an imbalanced gut too is very stressful on the body, which I know we'll talk a little bit more about that, because I always have to remind people that stress is just not external, it's also internal. So
Mm-hmm.
having those internal stressors of an imbalanced gut, that's a stress on the body. And yes, absolutely, for anxiety, depression, it is known as our second brain. So
Mm-hmm.
for people who are feeling those like intense mood swings, I always think what's going on in your gut.
Mm-hmm.
That's where some of the neurotransmitters are made. That is where majority of our immune system is housed. So that's why
Mm-hmm.
anything with autoimmunity, I'm like, I need to look at your gut. So that's what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying. And even things like acne. So that's why I'm like, the
Mm-hmm.
gut, the gut, the gut.
Well, okay, so that is fascinating. So okay, so I know we're not going to get into diagnosis, but like to your point, there's so many things that it impacts, right? I have autoimmune. My daughter has acne, and she's in her like early 20s now, and she knows it's gut. She's been trying like to eliminate things from her diet, like all these kinds of things. But so when you suspect, so if you go to, and this is nothing against traditional Western medicine, but oftentimes it'll be, let's do a pill. So, what are other alternatives to that?
Yes. So the first thing I would do is stool testing for sure, because
Okay.
someone can have the same exact diagnosis and have completely different treatment plans because it just
Mm,
depends on what's going on in their gut. And so I do think that there's something there versus doing something that's, I don't know, broad and it's just recommended to everyone. Obviously, there are some very standard things that you can do.
mhm.
The first thing with diet is always eating whole foods. And yes, there's even the gray area of like, I've seen blueberries bother people, right? And blueberries are naturally pretty healthy and good.
Mm,
So there's individualization there. But eating whole foods, and I say whole foods, and it's not just eating healthier because there's still a lot of packaged items out on the shelves that are great
100%.
ingredients, right? But is it fresh food? It's still processed to an extent. I'm not saying that those don't have a place, but I have found that even, busy women, they are grabbing things. They're grabbing grass-fed beef jerky and they're grabbing a protein
Mm,
bar. Again, great ingredients, but we're still missing and bypassing eating fresh food. And that has so
mhm.
much power compared to a healthy processed item. So I always say, look at your plate, assess your plate, can you grow it or can you kill it? Those are the questions I ask. If you
Hmm.
tell me that it has to be manufactured to get to this point, and that is majority of what you're eating, then I'm like, that is the first thing we need to be changing.
Okay.
I also think when it comes to the part of nutrition, I also want to mention making sure we're eating enough, because a lot of women, they blame age. And I'm not saying that age isn't a part of it, but I think we make it way bigger of a deal than it actually is, because I see people who are healthier than some of my 20-year-olds and they're like
Yep.
in their 60s, just FYI. So
No, it's
age
true.
does
It's true.
not
I can testify.
Yes, yes. So age does not mean that like, oh, it's all
Mm,
downhill from here. Not at all. But I find a lot of women that are struggling, and like when I hit my 30s or when I hit my 40s, that's when everything
mm,
fell apart. It's really just so many years and decades of probably like not taking care of our body
mhm.
in the sense of high stress, too much caffeine, fast food, not enough food, all the things that can go on in our life. But under eating can actually negatively impact our gut microbiome. So if you want a healthy gut, you
Uh,
do got to make sure that you're eating enough. And so that is the other side of nutrition outside of what you're eating, is making sure that we're eating enough. And I can say with confidence, majority of women that come to our practice is not eating enough. And it's not
mm.
that they're not trying. They actually are following hunger cues. They're eating, just as they're hungry, but your body gets so used to it over time that it's like, no, girl, you're eating like a toddler and you're a
Oh my
grown
God.
woman.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So everything you just said, I'm guilty. Because my daughter even, no, seriously, because last night, because I started doing intermittent fasting, right? And I
Okay.
do like 18-hour fast. And I said to her last night, I go, oh, I'm too close to my window. And she goes, Mom, you don't eat enough. You need to eat more. Okay. So I'm going to tell her she's right.
Yes.
Wow.
Intermittent fasting has a place, but I would say you have to get on point with eating enough and
Yeah.
then you alter your window of eating. So that's like secondary.
Okay. Okay. Well, and I will say the positives to it for me, like, because I'm like past menopause now. But for me, it's been great because it lowered my cholesterol. So it goes back to what we were talking about on the
Nice.
holistic, right? Lowered blood pressure, lowered cholesterol. My doctor was thrilled. He's like, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Your activity level's gone up, you're fasting." So it does make a huge difference. And we eat whole foods. Like we're all about whole foods. We don't really do any
I
packaging.
love that.
So like, but to your point, like it makes a big difference in how energetically, even how you show up, right? Like I have tons of energy, even compared to my
Yeah.
20-year-old. Like I'm like, let's go. She's like, Mom, you're way too energetic. I know,
Oh
but
my
it's all
gosh.
good. But so I'm going to segue just a little bit because many women are facing weight issues, especially when you hit perimenopause, menopause, and that's disheartening because it's tough to get it off. But there's also this like the fatigue and getting proper sleep, right? Chronic
Yeah.
inflammation. You talked about autoimmune disease. Like that's a very much a like serious factor. And so what do you see that's driving this increase, I would say, in chronic inflammation, the fatigue and the weight loss? And not just women, it's
Yeah.
happening. The weight gain happens with men too, but for different reasons.
Yeah. 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 Like I said, I think that your health is like a bucket and we're always contributing to it. And so there's never ever one thing in
Mhm.
every chronic illness. I feel like there's never one thing that it's just maybe there's one thing that tipped it over, but there's been things that have been contributing to that bucket to the point of overflowing. And so I think it's just those decades. And a lot of the times we're like, I've been eating so good for like the last 6 months. And I'm like, okay, but like,
Mm.
what have you been eating the last 30, 40 years? And they're like, oh, okay. So when you look at it from
Guilty.
that point, it's like,
Yeah.
I love that you're eating good for 6 months, but we got to give ourselves grace for understanding that there's been things that we've been doing probably not the
Mm.
best for such a long time. So diet is definitely one of them for sure. I do think environmental toxin exposure has gone up tremendously
Mm.
over the decades and probably getting worse. Stress is a huge component. I would say that might be first, or I would say maybe secondary to diet.
Mhm.
Maybe even first now though, because I do feel like with the resources and education we have, I think people are like making it hot to like eat healthy, which I love. But stress is still there. And then our sedentary lifestyle, that's also, I feel like, increasing a little bit. But also just past trauma that was never addressed. And I
Mm.
would say in my most stubborn cases, especially in weight loss or yes, autoimmune, things that just will not move the needle, there has always been something in their past that they maybe thought they addressed, but they fully
Mm.
didn't. I love the book, The Body Keeps the Score. It's a good one.
Oh, it's a great
And
one. Yes. Gabor
love,
Mate.
yes, love him. And so yeah, those are I would say the biggest things that I see of why women are kind of building up to this point where yes, they're like 40 and they're like, I just don't feel good. And we may want to blame more hormones. I'm not saying that there's not a hormonal component to it, but I think there's all these other things that honestly drive what our hormones are doing.
Yeah. Wow. That's a lot right there. I mean, I think you're so right. And yes, the book, The Body Keeps Score, that's such a fantastic read. And he really breaks it down into feel the experiences that he takes you through and then how that actually is impacting your body. So stress is huge. And some people will say, and I'm guilty, oh, but I love stress. I work really great under stress. And so internally we think, oh, stress can be really good or stress can be really bad. And so let's just talk about stress overall. What does it do
Yeah.
to the body?
I mean, I think we're also slightly addicted to stress, right? Because I feel
Yes.
like that's what kind of keeps us going. So yes, even if you're like, feel pretty good with stress, I'm like, but do you? Because your
Mm,
body may be feeling it in different ways. And so a lot of people think like, oh, if I'm feeling stressed, I'm probably going to feel anxious or short of breath or my heart's racing. But
mm,
it can show in ways of having blood sugar dysregulation. I have people
mm,
who eat amazing and who exercise amazing, but they're stressed out of their eyeballs and they can't get their blood sugar under control. It's because when we are stressed, our cortisol is there thinking,
mm,
and also backing up real quick, our body doesn't realize that a stress of I'm stuck in traffic or, oh, I'm behind deadline, it is equal. It is the same body physiological response as to someone breaking in your house ready to kill you, right? So your body is there to ready to run and protect you. But what that means is saying, shoot, I need to tap into our stored glucose in our body and our liver and our muscles because I want you to have readily available fuel to run.
To run.
And
Yeah.
that's why stress has such an impact on blood sugar. Obviously, it keeps us in that fight or flight, and healing can't happen when someone's in fight or flight mode. Obviously, our cardiovascular system feels that increase in blood pressure, our heart rate. It delays ovulation, so it impacts those female hormones. It lowers our immune system, so that can impact obviously getting sick, but also our gut microbiome. Like our immune system is there to make sure that things don't overgrow and get crazy and imbalanced. But if our immune system's lower, our defenses are lower, our gut bacteria is going to go throw its own party and go wild. It can increase our leaky, what we call leaky gut, but our intestinal permeability, that lining in our intestines. For some people, we feel stress through maybe it constipates you, maybe it causes diarrhea, but it changes digestion, impacts our sleep, and then ultimately can help us or cause us to hold on to weight, which because when we have higher cortisol, we have decreased thyroid hormone production, which is a huge part of our metabolism. And so then we're starting to see the hypothyroid impacts it has. But overall, like stress is literally inflammation. Like it increases IL-6. It is inflammation. And there are good stressors in the sense of like exercise. Exercise is a good stressor on the body. But the idea is that it's short, it's sweet, and it's helping us build resilience versus the chronic stress, whether it is something amazing, like I'm moving across the country, like you could be so excited. That could be amazing for you, but it's still a stressor on the body. And so as always, when you think about stress, think about the external things, our jobs, our families, our relationships. But as I mentioned, think about the internal stressors too. The poor gut health, the under eating is such a stress on the body. Oh my gosh, it's so stressful. Blood sugar regulation. So as you can see, you have all these little buckets that are,
Feeding.
all these little drops into the same bucket, and then it's overflowing. So
Wow.
it's
Okay.
it's I would say the hardest thing I don't know, for me it's the hardest thing. I can change what's on my plate, I can exercise, but telling me that I have to really be mindful and reduce stress is hard. It's possible. But I believe we aren't victims to our lifestyle. I believe that we have
Love it.
power to change that.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I'll just share this briefly, but like one of the ways that I work with the leaders that come to me is about being conscious leaders, right? And it's for exactly what you just said, because it's helping you know that you have a choice as to how you show up in those situations. And so one of the examples I use is like when you're in rush hour traffic, right? Are you getting angry? Are you feeling like a victim? Why is this happening to me? And that was a result of my own issues of getting an autoimmune disease from stress. So what you're saying, like it is a reality for individuals when you're trying to manage all this stress and you're staying in fight or flight, like so important what you've just shared. Like, and it's not one bucket, it's multiple impacts that has. Wow.
Yeah.
Like that was amazing. So when we think about some of the factors that cause these gut issues, we hear Crohn's disease, we hear IBS, we hear colitis, and the list goes on, and Hashimoto disease, like that list goes on and on and on. So how do you get a handle on it early? I think that's one thing. But then also, what are some of the symptoms and differences between? Because when I think about IBS and I think about colitis or Crohn's disease, there's some similarities between them, but there's also great differences in them.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say, a lot of them have similar symptoms and like gas, bloating, cramping, potentially having urgency. IBD, which is inflammatory bowel disease, that usually covers like the Crohn's and colitis part. That usually is a little bit, I would say, more intense and usually has like blood and stool. And it's just more, I think, pain. And more, I would say, diarrhea than constipation, which IBS can be kind of both.
Okay.
And technically, Crohn's and ulcerative colitis can kind of be considered as autoimmunity as well.
Hmm.
But I think the list that I mentioned is really how we are able to get ahead of it is changing our diet, reducing our stress, being mindful of environmental toxins, making sure we're not overusing antibiotics, which obviously damages our gut. And sometimes we have to use them and that's fine. But I think it shouldn't be our go-to for like a lot of things. I think we're getting a little bit more mindful of that though, and conventional. There are some things that we can't change, but I would say to be mindful of, because I think we can understand how we've been set up and if we're at a disadvantage, and just being, I don't know, to me, I feel like it helps me be more mindful of the choices I make today because I wasn't set up properly. And some of those things are like, was I breastfed or was I formula fed? Was I C-section or was I a vaginal birth? Was I born in a city or more urban? Those different people have different microbiomes. And so typically like a C-section baby has been shown to have a different microbiome than a vaginally born baby because we're not going through our mother's vaginal canal, which is filled with
Ah,
probiotics. And so we have just different
fascinating.
exposures. So a lot of people that are in the city or they were formula or they are C-section, they typically have higher risks for like allergies and asthma and all these things. And it definitely correlates to the gut. So obviously you can't change that, but you can be like, okay, I was at a disadvantage. I really do need to make sure that I'm being more mindful. Everyone needs to be mindful, but I don't know. I feel like just more. You're just, I guess, more at risk, so to speak.
That's
And like I said,
fascinating.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I say stool testing. I think knowledge is power. And I think nothing gives you a kick in the butt than actually seeing lab results. And you're like, okay. Because if you are feeling okay, or if you're feeling slight bloat, or I kind of have diarrhea every now and then, or I kind of have acid reflux, these are the things that our bodies are using to speak to us. And we can keep pushing it off, but that usually means it's trying to say something. And we have to understand what it says. And that way, I don't know, I feel like, yeah, nothing kicks you in the butt than just seeing,
Mm.
something that you need to improve on your labs.
So true. So true. So that opens up more questions. I love this. So antibiotics, that's a biggie, and lots of controversy on how much we use it and do we get immune to it. And also often, I know in Canada at least, antibiotics are used to deal with things like what was it called? C difficile,
Yeah.
right? So I went through that myself back in, I don't know how many years ago, 8 rounds of
Oh,
antibiotics, and it just ripped my gut. Like I
wow.
was a mess. So how do you balance that? Because I needed the antibiotics to help me get rid of. I was like at the infectious disease center trying to get rid of this antibiotic or this issue with my gut. So how do you balance situations like that when, I mean, from a societal perspective,
You have
we
to do
often
it.
do push antibiotics as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the first thing a doctor will say if you come in, it's like, oh, yeah, let's put you on antibiotics. So, how do we
Yes.
balance that?
Yes. Well, I would say too, I love supplements. They have a time and a place, but I always question if you need a supplement, there's usually something in your diet and lifestyle you need to improve. And so I'm not
Mm,
against probiotic supplements because they can be helpful. I like cycling off and on. I don't like taking them all the time. And then I like trying
okay.
different strains. Again, if you have stool testing, it will tell you what strains you actually need to take and which ones you don't, which
Mm,
is really helpful. But I also think like the fermented foods, like naturally I think, okay, what our ancestors do before we had probiotic supplements? Like obviously
seriously.
they were doing something, right? And fermented foods was a huge thing because that was the way that we preserved our foods, naturally
Mhm,
made probiotics. And so it's like, ask yourself, yeah, when's the last time we had something fermented? And you might be like, never, or last month. And that
mm,
could be like, that's a red flag, right? Like think of it and be like, I need to start incorporating more because I want it to be natural. And then also, while we can give probiotics, and yes, usually probiotics are recommended if you have to be on antibiotics. And there can be other herbs or amino acids like L-glutamine that can be really helpful post antibiotics. But I kind of lost my train of thought. We were talking about probiotics.
Yeah, that's
Oh, come
okay.
back to me. Oh, come
I
back to
was
me.
saying, I was talking about antibiotics. How do you balance that when you have to be put on it? So probiotics was one option.
Yep, L-glutamine. They're honestly just time. Your gut microbiome. Oh, that's where I was going. Your gut microbiome will correct itself too, and sometimes it just takes time. Like there's certain antibiotics that cause a certain. It could be 3 months, it could be 6 months, and bouncing back. But the other way, outside of always thinking like I have to put more bacteria in our gut and better,
Mm,
let's also think about how can we help that bacteria survive? Like, are we
mm,
feeding
mm.
it what it needs, and how much are we feeding our body? Because we're like a little Airbnb host. We host them and we have to feed them. And if we're not doing that, then yeah, you're forever going to have to be taking probiotics because you're not giving it what it needs to be full.
Love that.
So
That's a great analogy, actually. I love the Airbnb and feed it. You've got guests in the house. Take care of them.
exactly. And so post antibiotics, we need to make sure we're getting those not only fermented foods, but the fiber foods, and making sure that, again, we're fueling them for their growth.
Mm.
So it's not always about throwing more probiotics. It's about nourishing what you have in your gut.
Wow. Wow. So many great comments that you've made today. And I think, audience that's listening, like, think about what is your gut health? So, and how are you feeding it? That was the other thing I'm really taking away from this is how are we feeding it? It's not always less is more. Sometimes you do need more to feed it properly. So, Dr. Lahana, like, what is something we need to share with the audience today that maybe we haven't covered, or something you really want the audience to walk away with today? Today we say we're going to do something different, and what would that be?
Yes. I would say to keep it simple and I think valuable to every single person is reflecting what's on our plate and can you grow it or can you kill it, and really assessing
Mm,
that. I know we didn't get into some of the things of like protein and stuff like that, but I'm all about balance. I don't think that
mm,
there is a reason to take away carbohydrates or fats or protein. I think they all play a really important role. And just
mhm,
because I've worked with a lot of power women, the problem of not eating enough is very prevalent. And where we see that in lower energy. And then our body doesn't have the building blocks it needs to thrive, to make
mhm,
hormones, to feel good, to fuel us. And so assess what you're eating. Is it actually real food? And are we eating enough? And that's something that's individual to everyone, but you can even start with, am I eating 3 times a day, right? Like, am I having breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Or am I skipping? You're more likely going to probably, if you are skipping, most likely not hitting it. Like I said, there's a time and a place for that timing window, but most of the time I very rarely see people eating enough and eating on like a very restricted time window.
Ah, I'm guilty. I'm guilty. Oh my gosh.
Your
I
daughter's
feel
going to be
like
like, I told you.
yeah, she is. She's going, I told you that, Mom. Oh my goodness. Wow, that's great. So I know I'm looking at our time, but just one more thing just before we go, because the protein. So if you only eat what you grow, how do
Yes.
you get enough protein? Because that's also, I mean, we have so many people now that are vegan, vegetarian. How do you make sure you're getting enough protein and it's not just synthetic protein?
Oh my gosh. We don't work with vegan. We work with vegetarian on a case by case basis because it is extremely hard to get enough without relying on processed forms of
Mhm.
it, like powders and bars and stuff like that. It is possible, but usually the distribution, that means usually taking a lot of carbs in order to get a lot of protein, because we are definitely a fan of like 1 gram per pound of weight. Obviously,
Okay.
that can change based on like goals, but it's much more than the RDA, because anything RDA based, whether it's nutrients or protein, it's the very minimum to avoid disease. And I believe that we are living for more than that. I believe we want to feel optimal, not just simply avoid disease. And so that's why it's one of the reasons why we don't work with vegan patients, because it's just really hard to get that. And it's just maybe not our specialty either. But usually with eating, when you ask, like, can I grow it or can I kill it? Usually, yeah, the animal proteins do help you get it way easier to hit those goals. It is possible for sure. I'm not saying it's impossible. Probably just not my specialty to help more on the plant-based side. But I'm all about the balance of having both. They both have a really important part in our diet. So I love a lot of veggies, but I also think that animal proteins get really, really dismissed a lot. And they definitely play a role. It's some of the most bioavailable forms of protein that we have, because the plants have a lot of anti-nutrients that can impact the way that we absorb plant protein. So there's, that there. So I always say in social media, you'll see two sides. You'll see each side of the spectrum, vegan and carnivore. And I'm telling you, the balance, the answer is in the middle, because there's beauty within both.
Well, no, that's well said. That's well said. I mean, we know in life, one extreme to the other is never good, right?
Exactly.
And so it usually is, how do you find the middle ground? And also, I think you said this earlier on, which is super important. It's, how does your body metabolize things? How are you, like, how does that respond to you? Some people, like, I know for me, I've trained myself to eat grass-fed. And if I don't have grass-fed, I get very sick based on what's in the product, right? And so our bodies, I think, also get used to certain things. And when we're not having it, then it's hard when you enter it back into your diet.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So, Dr. Lahana, how do people find you? If somebody says, I want a poop test, or somebody says, I want to learn more about functional medicine, or I have questions, I'm curious, like, where can they find you?
Yeah. Okay. I am at nuvitru.com, nuvitru.com. And that's where you can reach out to us if you're interested in testing or working with us. I am on all social platforms under Dr. Lahana, DRLAHANA, and then also Nuvitru Wellness as well. I mostly am on Dr. Lahana. I just split them up. So I'm still getting used to having like two. I feel like one social media is enough already, but having two, it's like, so you can definitely, I'm in the DMs all the time. Yes. I'm in the DMs all the time at the Dr. Lahana one. So you can find us there. And I have lots of free classes on our website too. So depending on weight or hypothyroid, or if you want to learn about environmental toxins, they're all free. So you can just go and like download those as well on our website. And yeah, we'd love to help where we can.
Oh, amazing. Amazing. Wow. You have been such a great guest. Thank you. Like, such a wealth of knowledge. And, we've got people chiming in from over 50 plus countries. And so I always like to make sure people know how to find you. So Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, like any of these channels, TikTok. Check Dr. Lahana out. And, because I'm sure you're going to have questions after you listen to this episode, and you're going to be like, what did she say about, or, how does that pertain to me personally? So do reach out to her.
Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. And so also from WIL Empowered, we want to thank you for joining us. As always, visit our website. We have lots of great resources on our website. And because of the conversation we've had today, I do want you to go in and check out one of the assessments we do, which is called the Energy Leadership Index Assessment. That assessment helps you understand how you're showing up in the world. And so when Dr. Lahana was talking about, are you showing up as a victim? Or are you somebody who sees things as opportunity? That is an assessment we do to help you really understand how you're showing up in the world. So check that out. If you have questions, you can message me. It's Vicki@willempowered.com. So I want to thank our audience for being here. You guys are always fantastic. Let us know how this resonates with you. And Dr. Lahana, thank you. Oh my gosh, this has been such a great conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. You've been a fantastic host.
Well, thank you. My pleasure. And everyone, we hope to see you on the next Women in Leadership Talk podcast. Take care, and we'll see you soon. Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining us for WIL Talk, sponsored by Women in Leadership Empowered. To learn more about our programs, please visit www.willempowered.com. We look forward to seeing you in our community.